Disclaimer. The weak-hearted should not listen to this story. Do you believe in God? Alex asked his friend Chris, who was equally drunk. Of course I do. I go to church every Sunday, moron. You are drunk out of your wits. What kind of question is that? Why not the devil then? Every entity in this world has a mirror identity of its own self. Why don't you believe in Satan if you believe in God? Because when I worship God, He is there to protect me from Satan. I never said I don't believe in Satan, I do, but he is in hell and earth is protected by the Lord. Blah. At 2 a.m., Alex and Chris were on the verge of losing their consciousness in the middle of the graveyard. Chris, who worked night shift, had called Alex to give him company on the lonely winter night. The breeze was freezing cold, but rum shots were doing them a solid. Alex gulped down another double shot before standing up. The alcohol was now working actively inside his bloodstream, making him dizzy. He took out a marijuana joint from his pocket and began searching for the lighter. What the? I had asked you to leave this shit home. I'm on a job here and I cannot risk your passing out this time, Chris blurted out, keeping his half-empty glass down. It's just one joint, Chrissy. Probably, you should give me company for the old time's sake, Alex mumbled with the joint between his lips. Give me the lighter. Chris snatched away the joint and threw it on the ground. The fuck is wrong with you, asshole? That shit does not come for free, Alex said, pushing Chris away. Unable to balance his weight, Chris fell over his glass, spilling the drink. He cursed Alex, but could not gather enough courage to stand up. Now that he was on the ground, he just wanted to close his eyes and sleep till the sun rose in its glory again. The sprinkling sound coming from Alex's direction startled him. What are you doing? He shouted in shock. Relax. My bladder was full, I'm just pissing on poor Clara's grave. Damn. She was just a 22-year-old dame. What a waste. You will rot in hell. Get out of here already. It was a mistake calling you here. And who's gonna send me to hell? I am sorry to hurt your religious sentiments, but fuck God and fuck Lucifer or whatever. I'm out of your boring party. Peace, he added. Wait, Chris screamed, to be gifted with a middle finger from Alex in revert. Alex started walking towards the exit while humming Black Sabbath's Sweet Leaf. The weather was now catching up on him. He pulled up his hoodie and zipped up his jacket. The dry leaves crunched beneath his shoes, creating an eerie sound. A normal person would have found it eerie, but he was too high to bother. He stumbled over a protruding root of a tree and fell forward, hitting his head on the trunk. Cursing under his breath, he stood up, took another long swig of his joint and began walking. It only took him a while to finish the joint, but he was still inside the graveyard. Baffled by the realization, he looked around him. Was he moving in circles? But he should have come across Chris again in that case. The graveyard was not that big to allow him to commit such a mistake. Maybe I was walking too slow, he thought, and began walking again. The leaves rustled behind him as he walked. He halted his steps gradually and came to rest. A drop-dead silence surrounded him. In that deafening silence, he could even hear his own heartbeat. For the first time he felt scared. Although in a normal scenario, he would have looked back, he decided to keep walking this time. The creepy noise began following him again. He decided to ignore it and started running. With every step he took, the noise seemed to be moved closer to him. In a couple of minutes, he was breathing heavily with no signs of the exit. He stopped to take a breath and consequently the world fell silent again. He was sweating. Even in the bone-chilling weather, he had to wipe off the sweat from his forehead. Gathering courage, He slowly turned to look behind him as his heart paced beyond the normal levels. There was a shadowy figure floating slightly above the surface. He gasped in fear and began running, screaming out loud for help, but there was no one to hear him. He felt the shadow catching up on him, and soon two hands had grabbed him and lifted him off the ground. What he saw scared him to death. 4 mutilated faces were attached to the body that had numerous bloodshot eyes staring right into his own. Several tongues extending from each of the mouths were now licking his face. He felt life running out of him as the heavenly figure flapped open thousands of his wings. The graveyard thundered with his laughter. "You are going to believe. You are going to believe in me," he said, swallowing Alex's head and breaking the bones in his body. Alex woke up. His head throbbed with pain. He found himself lying under a tree. It was the same root he had stumbled upon. He started laughing maniacally. "This is some strong shit," he said to himself, picking up his joint from where it had fallen. Taking a long swig, he stood up and tried shaking off the creepiness of the dream he had just had. Before he could take a step forward, he decided to return back to Chris. Although it was just a scary dream, he couldn't mutter enough courage to move ahead. "It would be best if I spend the night," he thought. "You're back?" Chris asked. He was standing in front of Clara's grave. "Yes, because I thought you would feel lonely without me." "Oh, I have so many friends here." Puzzled by the expression, he asked Chris, "What are you doing in front of Clara's grave?" "I'm talking with her. While she seems to be a dynamic young woman, she is in pain," he said, facing Alex, and the sight swept away the floor beneath his feet. 2 pitch black hollows had replaced his eyes and his mouth was dripping blood. A hand emerged out of Clara's grave as he started laughing. The hand gave way to the head, and soon, Clara was climbing out of her grave, her body smeared with blood. Alex shrieked in fear and turned to run, only to find the 4 mutilated faces stopping his way. "Do you believe in me now?" the 4 faces spoke in unison. He made a run for the exit, but he could hear the creepy laughter behind him. He stumbled over something and fell flat on his stomach. It was the same protruding root, but that was not what shocked him. There was a body lying on the ground with blood oozing out of its head. It was his body. He remembered falling over and hitting his head. He was already dead. "You are dead, but your soul is my prisoner forever," the voice echoed in his head before the graveyard was consumed in a menacing laughter,